see the amount of growth that they have made throughout the groups. It feels like that they have found their form, and they are looking scary moving into the best of fives.
Facing SKT is a very big challenge, and yeah, they are SKT, you know, there's not much to say. But we want to win the whole thing, and SKT is just the first step.
And that is a clean path to victory! SK Telecom, they're going straight for the Nexus!
I think the key things, we just kind of play as we did before, and I think we can take them now.
They're going for it. Wonder's moving in. It's the Abyssal Blades collapse. Taker's able to find that Emperor's Divide, keep himself alive, but only for a moment. Perk's grabbing the kill. In back-to-back games now, the European hopes have destroyed SK Telecom.
G2전을 2연패를 했는데 지금 보면은 G2는 좀 연패를 좀 많이 진 상태이고 저희는 연승도 하고 기세도 탄 상태여가지고 저희가 좀 더 적극적으로 할 수 있을 것 같고 졌기 때문에 꼭 이기고 싶습니다.
이번에 저희가 MSI 우승을 못하면 또 저의 국제대회 커리어에 빵꾸가 나는 거라서 굉장히 아쉬울 것 같고 우승을 목표로 하는 팀이다 보니까 4강전은 반드시 이겨야겠다는 마음가짐입니다.
I'm confident that they're going to show up, and I'm confident that Faker will play really strong in series. Faker has never lost in an international tournament before the final, so I'm pretty excited to give him the first loss.
Welcome back to MSI Countdown, where we are moments away from SKT versus G2. Spawn and I have been looking at Clid this entire tournament. He is an exceptional jungler, and many have said even the MVP of the entire tournament so far.
Yeah, and whilst SKT renowned for their methodical mid-game play, this guy is all about the early game. You see his first blood rate, he's KDA at the tournament, but it's just not all about those ganks.
Exactly. It's not just about killing your opponents. It's also about his first place in wards place and wards cleared per minute out of all junglers in the entire tournament. So let's take a look at some of the cerebral play that you get from a jungler like Clid. He does a lot of work to get himself in place to make those big game-changing plays.
And I want you to notice on the minimap the ward on the blue buff right now of the Team Liquid lineup. So they know exactly where Smithy is starting. Smithy wants to go from red and get into the bottom lane to impact a gang. So as we roll out this clip, notice that as soon as Clid takes his red buff, he's going to make a V-line for this bottom lane, going around the wards, using the blast plant, and impacting the game.
And as soon as the Team Liquid successful play, by the way, goes off, he immediately heads bottom lane. Team Liquid do get their level 2 first blood kill, but Clid not only answers that kill, but critically burns the flash from double lift and then sticks around to take advantage.
Yeah, so watch this, right? Stays on the bottom side, picks up with the Scuttle Crab, not wasting any time. As soon as double lift teleports back here, Clid once again visits this bottom lane. Now without flash, without teleport, double lift, a sitting duck, gets cleaned up. And because Core JJ is only level 1, not able to devour and save his 80 carry.
Now that is how you successfully camp a bottom lane. And Clid single-handedly turns around a successful Team Liquid first blood into a winning SKT bottom lane.
And now this clip is a little bit more about the vision. So take note, Clid wants to get in the top lane. So as we roll this one out, going to do the Scuttle Crab in between two pieces of vision. However, the crab will be picked up, so Clid ducks back into his jungle to try and throw off the gank target.
Yeah, just in case they were looking, they saw that Scuttle Crab get killed. He wants to get level 3 off of the blue buff here. And look at those two wards. For a regular jungler, there is no way to gank this Sylas, get your Kennen ahead, let the Kennen use that range advantage. But for Jarvan, he has more options.
Yeah, it certainly does. So he's going to pick up the Gromp, get that level 3 we were speaking about, and then going to head back into the Baron Pit. So as we roll this clip again, you'll notice that Clid doesn't, once again, waste any time. He's such a decisive pathing jungler, will go in between the vision, so will not be seen by the Shy, and times his gank very nicely with a creep wave, so the Shy only gets notification at the very last moment.
And because he's got his blue buff, cooldown for his EQ is back up, and it is a successful SKT first blood. Now that is a really good offensive look from Clid, but he also plays defensively. He can recognize the enemy team's win condition. Elise and Jace is a very classic matchup. Jace, super hard winning lane, pushes up the minions, and then dives their opponent with the Elise, dropping tower aggro with Repel.
However, because this is going to be the bottom side start here from Jankos, Clid knows that he needs to be able to pick up not only his red buff, but an additional 3 camps to be able to get the level 3 for the dive. Clid on the Lee Sin has a better option here. He has a 3 camp clear to level 3, including blue, red, and Krugs, and will be able to get to the top side of the map first.
Exactly. He positions himself here, as you see when we zoom out the mini-map, for the play before it even happens. Expecting the gank, Clid positions himself defensively, and single-handedly, he will now ward off a G2 first blood and G2 denying a cannon minion wave from Khan. Clid now going to exchange with Cap, and he even sacrifices his health bar to ensure that they don't give up the first blood and that G2 don't get anything out of their roaming mid laner or their jungler pressure.
And this is 2 creep waves for Khan. It also means he doesn't have to burn any summoner spells, including the crucial TP, because we know this lane is going to come under fire as the game progresses. And notice the recall in the lane. It's just the little things that junglers can do to keep their top laners safe.
Offensive, defensive, Clid does it all. He is SKT's early game, and he is going to be a big factor in this series. Dash, take it back.
An absolutely standout performer throughout this entire tournament, Clid has been. But while we bask in the glory of Clid this tournament, it's important to harken back to what our friends in Taipei had said. G2 2-0'd SKT in the group stage, and they looked good doing it.
Yeah, and it wasn't necessarily through trying to attack the jungle. I think Jankos did have a good performance throughout the group stage of this tournament, but it felt like it was the solo laners and how Jankos was plugging into them that really led to a lot of G2 success, as well as playing those side lanes that Deficio was talking about earlier.
Yeah, I think obviously for G2 esports, I know for us this is something you also really love, is the amount of different plays that they can actually bring to the table. But what's super important about how peak G2 performs is that when they are in these side lanes, they're not necessarily looking to just group as 5 later and big team fights like we see other teams do. They actually want to stay, keep the map spread out, and you apply pressure multiple lanes at the same time because you have so many good players in these lanes and you have creative players who know when to roam around. And I want to see that because I think G2 kind of dropped the ball in that department during the later half of groups.
When they had so much success against SKT, I remember it very distinctly, where SKT took the Scuttle Crab in front of the Baron, they cleared out all the wards, they had something like an Azir, and then they're like, okay, we've secured this. G2, there's no way that they can go for this objective, and they leave. But the thing about G2 is they don't care about traditional League of Legends. They don't care about the rulebook, they throw that all out, and they immediately turned on the Baron, and they catch a team like SKT off guard. So don't play standard with them. Play with your food, play aggressive, play high tempo.
Well, that's how EU does it. G2 is squaring up against an SKT who has challenged the buckets or baskets people want to put them into.
You know me, Dash, not a fan of baskets or buckets.
Oh, no.
I don't think that SK Telecom deserves to be put in any type of kind of slow bucket that people have molded to them. They are a methodical team. And just looking even at Clid and the replays that Spawn and I have been going over, Clid himself is an early game for SKT.
Yep.
He does not play slow.
And also their lanes are actually very strong laners. So it would be very weird for them just to be super slow in the early game and not do anything, because Faker has won his lane actually most of the games if you just look at raw CS numbers. Khan is literally at your turret from minute 1 pushing. He just needs backup, a lot of backup from his jungler. So SKT, when they're drafting for it, can take over an early game, but it doesn't mean they necessarily are just over-forcing fights. And that's why they are a very smart team who still values the very safe play instead of taking all the high-risk plays.
And you can see that in their different play style. The fact of the matter is that when Caps and Faker are on the Rift, you have to talk about them, but Caps is a roaming mid laner. He likes to get out to those side lanes. And we know that Faker had his era. I mean, he's played every iteration of the mid game possible. He can be a roaming mid laner, but this tournament, he's been more about the Azir, he's been more about the Akali. He sits in his lane, he farms himself up, and then he waits for those team fights and kind of plays more to his team's direction.
It's actually very fascinating regarding Caps and the point you're making there, because I think Caps back in Europe and Caps internationally are playing very different. In Europe, a lot of times it actually feels like he's trying to just take over his own lane and become super strong individual, and he is a big carry. But internationally, he's willing very early on to sacrifice his lane. Level 3, we see him roam to top lane in the clip you showed there from the SKT game they played earlier. And it means for him that he's often actually the guy in the front line who is sacrificing himself, who's willing to die for his team, despite being one of the star players, and he's a mid laner. Faker is obviously playing very different.
Interestingly enough, from a stats point of view, SKT had the second highest goal difference at 15 out of the group stage, only behind IG, and then the largest goal difference at 20 of all teams in the group stage. So again, a team that's no stranger to creating early advantages and building that gold lead for themselves. With everything on the line, though, I want to hear from you guys. Who do you think will meet Team Liquid in the finals?
Kobe.
Me first?
Yeah, you first. You're sitting right next to me.
I'm going to go with SK Telecom then.
Really?
I can't stick with my prediction from cooldown where Deficio was right next to me.
He's still right next to you.
Yeah, I'm literally here.
He's sitting right there.
I feel safer now.
Keep looking that way for some reason.
I'll protect you, Kobe. I got you.
Look me in the eyes when you say SKT will win.
Clid will win. I was reminded last night of a very old saying in League of Legends.
Yes?
Better jungler wins.
Better jungler wins. Deficio, what are you thinking here?
I'm going 3-2 G2
All right.
in this one. I think you can't really prep for them properly, which normally is a big advantage for SKT, because they're going to change some things up. They're going to go back to what worked for them in Europe, stick to side lanes, pressure over fights, and also their drafts, I think and I hope they'll be creative.
Frost?
Deficio's on the right side. It's 3-2 G2. 100% agree with everything you said.
Either way, all three of you are calling a 5-game series.
Yes.
I would kill for exactly that here today in our second semifinal. With that, I'm going to send it over to the stage for the player intros.
Hello， 所有来到和平篮球馆现场以及在线上电视上收看的观众朋友，大家好，大家好，大家好，안녕하세요，Hello everyone， 我是主持人丽珍。欢迎收看2019英雄联盟季中邀请赛4强赛第2天的赛程。今天比赛的胜者将会与昨天获胜的 Team Liquid 一起进入最后的总决赛。现在，让我们拿出最大的热情来欢迎今天要对战的2支队伍登场。首先，让我们欢迎蓝色方的队伍，来自 LCK 赛区的 SK telecom T1。上路 Con， 打野 Please， 中路 Faker， 下路 Teddy。辅助 Mata， 替补打野 Halu， 还有他们的教练 Jfa。让我们再次热情的掌声欢迎 SKT 战队。紧接着，让我们邀请红色方的队伍登场，他们是来自于欧洲 LEC 赛区的 G2 Esports。上路 Wonder。Youngcos， 中路 Caps， 下路 Perks， 辅助 Mickey。替补辅助 Promise Q。教练 Grabs。让我们再次热情的掌声欢迎 G2 战队。两支队伍已经蓄势待发，现在宣布2019英雄联盟季中邀请赛4强赛第2天的赛程，现在正式开始。
Welcome back! We're just about ready for SK Telecom to take on G2 Esports. I'm Quickshot, joined by Vedius and Papa Smithy. And Caps looked very excited to be on stage. His dad was in the crowd as well. And Papa Smithy, we've got a spicy game ahead of us.
I mean, Taipei is bubbling, we're ready to jump up and down like Kobe was yesterday. And which way it goes is so up in the air. We had a moment in time yesterday. Another one is going to be made today.
I got terrified because one of the things that came out of our big story meeting when we were preparing for today's broadcast was IG went 2-0 over Team Liquid in groups.
How'd that work out?
Mean? Not very well. I'm very trepidatious and nervous, but these two teams have met many times in the past. It's 7 wins, 3 losses in favor of SK Telecom. The last time they met in an MSI playoff was the final back in 2017, but the stakes and the circumstances are very different this time around.
Back then is when Perks really made a name for himself on the international stage, finding a slew of solo kills and assisted kills onto Faker and putting up a very solid fight. Even to the point in which Faker quoted that this current G2 was not that much different from the previous one that he fought.
I still feel like both teams are richer for the journey after that MSI 2017. Because remember, while the SKT era ended with that loss to Samsung Galaxy in the final in 2017, that was the last tournament they went out and won. That was that big win for them at MSI. And then from there, the change, we only have 2 common players from the 10 that were fielded on that MSI 2017 final.
It's insane, and one of them role swapped, you know, to get away from the position.
That's right.
Well, that's the way you want to look at it, of course, yes, because there's an upgrade in the mid lane. It is Caps, it's the guy that we were talking about a moment or two ago. Let's dial in as the players are seated. What are going to be the priority picks here? We know that Ryze, Silas, Akali have been, you know, tournament defining, but what else should I be considering, Vedius?
Well, my biggest question is how much do SKT value the Jace? Because we've already seen that G2 have come prepared with picks like the Pyke, and you would have to imagine that they have other things prepared as well. So will G2 let it through the draft? Will SKT still put that much value on it?
And the question I want answered, which will be answered very quickly, is how much do SKT target the things that were their downfall in 2 games against G2 in the group stage, and how much of it is more tournament meta in this first pick and ban?
Well, we're already seeing some unique stuff coming out from SKT with the Tom Kench priority ban coming out on the blue side, and very specifically the Nico ban as well. So a lot of junglers and flex picks still available right now.
I think we can both agree that Nico is kind of this new pick that's gained steam over MSI. It wasn't in the conversation like those 5 flex picks were come day 1 of the group stage, but it's picked up steam. It can be played in 2 different styles. SKT gonna ban Jace away, so the Jace first pick that of course provoked the now infamous top lane Pyke is going to be banned on blue side by SKT.
Now, I wonder if G2 choose to ban the Silas here, or whether they look to leave both junglers open. That would mean that SKT could get priority on Klid's Jarvan, who I believe is the best Jarvan player in the world, with an answer then for themselves at the rec side.
If both junglers are up, Galio looms as kind of a possible first pick. It's away from the flex picks, but it is something that can be so powerful, and it is a Silas ban. So this means that Jarvan is just preferred by Klid, going for what has so far been a warrior build every time.
He's played at 2 games, both wins, with a KDA of 12, 2, and 23. Now, Galio is open, and that is also an undefeated pick for Mata, but holy moly, Sona Taric, do they do it?
Well, they could. G2 played it in the finals up against Origin. Oh, they're instantly going to lock it in. SKT, they've let it through the draft.
Papa Smithy, does Teddy play Draven?
You know, he has been known to flex onto it, and this was something we were talking about backstage. One of my biggest concerns was that SKT were going to leave open Sona Tarek and just try the Draven Nautilus into it. It's available as a duo if they want it.
Do it, do it, do it! No! Oh. It's a pivot away. Of course, we wanted to see the Draven because it was Draven that helped IG picked up a 16-minute win against SKT Sona Tarek.
And the Ezreal doesn't apply that much pressure outside of level 1 when it comes to aggressive trades. The Nautilus is probably going to be picked up. It makes this duo lane accountable, but it's not as aggressive as we usually see. And actually, they're flexing very differently, looking for a support that actually picks up the lane presence compared to something like the Ezreal.
This is very fascinating coming out from SKT. I guess the goal is to use the long-range harass and farm and pressure tools that Akama and Ezreal does provide to avoid the Sona from getting those stacks and being aggressive in the laning phase.
Or if you want to focus on the Tarek, who's a melee champion last hitting at the start, poke him out every time he walks up. So poke, but not necessarily the all-in kill threat of a Draven Nautilus.
Now, excuse my goldness here, but what are the chances that's a top combo? Let's see how the rest of the draft plays out. I just want to throw it out there, as it looks like G2 Esports have locked in the Irelia as we enter phase 2.
So now the issue that G2 is going to face is that SKT can ban away the Rek'Sai and a potential second jungler, which means that G2 are going to be limited in that jungle pool, whereas for G2, because they get priority, they can look to ban away some of the obnoxious top laners that Card could want to grab up for himself as a blind pick.
But if we're going to use the word methodical to describe SKT's composition and just the way SKT has played largely this tournament, you know, very much getting themselves into a position where they know their power level. We kind of know the Sona Tarek's power level as the game goes on becomes very, very high towards the sort of time where SKT have been sweeping over opponents. So how can they keep that high tempo up, especially if G2 can show us a comp that can actually deal with Clid's impact on the early game?
What fascinates me is that the direction that G2 is going for is very much a team fight style of composition, and where they found the most success during the group stages when they split up the map, when they played the 1-3-1. That is how they got the better of SKT, constantly going for skirmishes, but right now they could be going up in a team fight against one of the best team fighting teams in the world.
And you can see the Vladimir and Azir taken off the table. When I see that Azir ban, I also think to myself, what if Faker runs common mid? I want to see how the rest of this draft plays out. We don't have answers yet, because that Irelia could go to Wonder, to Caps. We'll need to see who locks it in. Final ban is Rek'Sai.
So Olaf and Hecarim are two junglers here that could be considered that synergize really well with Sona Tarek as the game goes on. You want auto attacks to be able to fully abuse what Sona can provide aura-wise as the game goes on. It's also the strongest kind of tempo jungler, but not necessarily going to have winning lanes around the Olafs, which is something to track. SKT, do they look for more team fight, or do they want to reset team fights? Because usually against Sona Tarek, a Gragas or something that can team fight AoE reset is kind of a prerequisite. But SKT are kind of in uncharted territory at this point, Betty.
It feels like SKT are just committing to the fight. They're stacking up on the utility. They've gone for Lissandra and Kennen. You couldn't ask for more AoE team fight setup. They have so much engaged. They're just going to try and match the Sona Tarek in these 25-minute fights.
So they're not looking to reset team fights. They're looking to pick people on the way. If you control the map and the 5 members of G2 either have to be super predictable down a long lane, but never actually face check jungle, you can maybe stop the order of things. But speaking of stopping, it's a Morgana, and the Black Shield is going to be super high value.
Extremely. And Faker has played Lissandra 11 times this year and won 10 of those games. Let's see what Caps can do on Morgana, because I think Jankos is better.
It is a very suspicious Lissandra timing, because this is in a patch where Lissandra, especially for early lane, has been powered down extensively. A blind Lissandra, usually a very defensive choice. I feel like there must be something compositionally here with the required hard lockdown, but in terms of the 1v1, Morgana, just about nothing happening, and Lissandra probably going to be frustrated.
The thing I'm looking at right now is the amount of damage available on both sides, because when you think of late game kind of carries, right? Right now, for G2, you're looking at Irelia being probably the primary damage dealer. Sure, Sona will get some damage herself, but on the side of SKT, you're looking at Teddy on the Ezreal, potentially Khan on the Kennen to be those primary damage team fight dealers. And it's just fascinating that we have such like low damage comps compared to what we've had so much of in the tournament. There's so much utility in this game that landing those skill shots, when to pick and choose how to use that utility, will be the determining factor in who comes out in these teams.
And you say low damage comps, I'm seeing a late game where SKT are going to be just answered completely by the Taric ultimate, so getting things done before Sona and Taric can get all their eggs into the basket. The first 20 minutes need to be decisively SKT's, otherwise there's a lot to like about G2.
And welcome back. You're getting a glimpse of the MSI pedestal just a moment ago, where the winners of this year's mid-season Invitational will have the trophy displayed with their name for at least a month after the event. It's going to be a very hype, and we need to see whether or not SK Telecom or G2 Esports will have a shot at the title. G2 with the creative start. Mickey is sitting in the top.
Now, the one thing that G2 have not done throughout the group stages of MSI is showcase any kind of special level 1 strats, which they brought out in the final against Origin and caught them off guard. But it's SKT with the leading level 1.
And oh, that's a flash forward. I did not anticipate that from Teddy, and already on the board, SK Telecom.
And this is so important because remember, the only Sona Taric game we had in group stages was the big level 1 where SKT's bot lane lost summoners and then found it hard to lane. Now, it's not quite Draven levels of lane pressure from the Ezreal, but a first blood, a welcome start, and that's going to be a Sapphire Crystal to open the lane for the Ezreal.
Getting that much closer to the early tier for the Ezreal, and a really great way to kick this series off for the side of SKT. Big blunder there from Perkz, being isolated by the blue buff, very quickly gets punished.
All right, so let's see what Sona and Taric can do.
Marta's
all of a
in trouble.
sudden, though, now Marta's actually replied, so that's a flashless bottom lane for SK Telecom. Marta's going to turn this one around. He's sitting on the Ignite. Keep that in mind if any fights break out.
But suddenly, if you're Jankos, you're thinking of how can I path around to keep bot side protected? Because right now, both of your laners, who one of them is going to be walking up and harassing in the Sona, the other one a melee champion last hitting in the early game in the Taric, and now down their flashes. So if Clid can set up anything bot side, very difficult for Mickey and Perkz to react for the foreseeable future.
Clid decided to start on his red buff and actually path up towards the Scuttle. So right now he's looking to get some control over the top side of the map, as all of his laners look to have early priority, having the push in bot side, the push in top, and Lissandra already pushed in mid will allow Clid to actually secure what looks to be a 3-buff start.
Yeah, very good starts, and that's a terrifying sign for the best performing jungler at the tournament. In Clid, he has secured that red buff. You can see a response from Caps, who's playing his first ever professional Morgana game, by the way, and it's just the chickens for Jankos.
But Jankos awkwardly started Sweeper to spot if there was topside vision, and it was just a hair's breadth outside of the Sweeper radius, so that means he doesn't know that he's been completely spotted on the top side. SKT very active in the level 1 warding, and that means that G2 are boxing with shadows a little bit when it comes to these map movements.
Yeah, SKT, they have full control over this early game. They have 3 pushing waves. They've already invested good early vision into the river, and this is something we see SKT do a lot in the early game. They want to see when the enemy jungler is looking to contest, and speaking of junglers...
Oh, Marta and Jankos, they're going to be trading here. Here comes Clid, though. Flag and drag is available, won't get the knockup. Jankos defensive flash. Teddy connects with a Mystic Shot, and now Caps has made his way. Looking at Faker, he's coming in behind Caps, and he's going to find it. Gets the root down, the flash is interrupted by the Black Shield, and Caps doesn't flash defensively. SKT are up 1,400 gold.
We were talking about how they had to play on the front foot because the scaling of G2 is a bit of an inevitability, and SKT keep walking up, and it started with Mata going for a second face check this time, though. Able to get another kill, and all Caps can say is he holds onto his flash, but not his life.
SKT once again pushing this early game advantage even further and further ahead of G2, and it just feels like very simple mistakes coming out from the side of G2, and a lot of props to Clid once again reading the enemy jungler and being there to support this SKT in the early game.
And interestingly, if you kind of step back and see how this game is washing over you, my kind of feeling from it is that G2 are kind of surprised to see Sona Taric up and a default into something that's worked for them in the past. lost, but SKT, from their active level 1 towards their pathing, seem to have much more of a strategy to play against it than honestly they did playing with.
Well, take a look at this. Teleport coming to the bottom lane. Perks has channeled it already. Caps has made his way down. Remember, it's flashless Mata and Teddy, but it's Jankos that's in trouble. He can't kill Mata. Now G2 are retreating. They invested teleports from mid and from top, and it backfires.
Indecision comes out from G2. We saw the Taric stun sitting on top of Jankos, but he hesitated. He backed off for a second. They missed the stun and then decide to commit anyway. SKT were waiting for that overextension because the moment it happens, Faker's TP comes through, Clid arrives in the nick of time, and immediately SKT find themselves with their 3rd early kill of the game.
And that clarity of those calls, I think, is on full display. Vedius could catch there because right now it's just another TP that comes in instantly that punishes Jankos when he finally does decide to go aggressive. In the meantime, Khan and Wonder have been very isolated, but if you remember, there was wards and Clid path around topside Scuttle, so the Kennon's happy to walk up and freely get Klepto procs. He's not respecting enemy ganks.
Yeah, definitely not. And as it stands, G2 Esports are down 2,000 gold. Now, I do want to remind everybody that G2 Esports did fall behind when they ran the Pyke into Khan's Jace. And it was mid-game skirmishing, as well as Pyke's passive, that really helped them get back in the game. G2 cannot afford to fall further and further behind because they need that time to scale.
I mean, the difference between that game and this game is G2 don't have a competition.